Hello friends, thank you for watching this video. I am Mohamad and today we're going to be discussing a new feature which has been introduced within .NET 7 Preview 4, which is going to be filtering. Previously to Preview 4, if we needed to do any validation on the object which is coming into our endpoint within a minimal API, we needed to do it inside the request itself. But now, because we have filtering enabled, we can actually do all of this checking before the request actually reaches the endpoint. And this is something really exciting, and it's going to be basically taking the minimal API to a basically new level. So inside this video, we're going to be doing two things. We're going to see how we can actually attach the filtration directly into our endpoint and basically have all of the logic there. And the part 2 of this video, it's basically we're going to be creating a class which manage all of the filtration from there. And basically we're going to see how we can attach it to our endpoint, and we can see how we can actually do all of the filtration. So if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. It will really help the channel. Now, let's jump into it. In order for us to utilize the latest version of the .NET 7 Preview 4, what we need to do is we need to download the SDK. And in order for us to do that, we need to go to basically .net.microsoft.com /en-us, download .NET 7, .NET /7.0. And once we get to this page, by the way, the links will be available in the description down below. What we need to do is we need to actually download the SDK based on our own operating system. And we need to make sure that we are utilizing the SDK version 7.0.100-preview.4, because this is where the new functionality of filters within a minimal API is going to be enabled. So once we have done that, for example, I am on a Mac, so I already downloaded my x64 here. Download please whatever SDK version you need based on your operating system, but make sure it's going to be 7.0.100-preview.4, because this is going to be the one that we're going to be needing. So once you have downloaded and installed it, what we need to do right now is we need to open our terminal. And once we open our terminal, what we need to do is we need to check if the .NET Preview 7 has been installed successfully. And in order for us to do that, we're going to be utilizing the .NET-list-SDKs. And once I click on this, it's going to show me all of the .NET SDK which is installed on my machine. So as I see here, I have basically 4 different versions of the .NET SDK. I have 3.1, 5.0, 6.0 and 7.100-preview 4, and this is exactly the one that I want. And basically, since I have this, I'm confident right now that I can actually utilize the latest version of the .NET SDK. The other part of the puzzle that we currently need is we need our startup repository in order for us to build the latest version, or basically implement the latest feature, which is going to be the filters within minimal APIs. So what we need is we need some kind of a repository, which I already have one. So first of all, if you're not following me on GitHub, please follow me. I had to plug this in. And basically, once you go to my GitHub account, go to my repositories, and inside the repositories, look for minimal API-JWT. So in the search, type minimal API, and you can see it's going to be the second one or the first one, minimal API-JWT. And once you click on that, you're going to see the repository here. And basically, this is a repository. If we open it, which is a minimal API which we have built in a previous video. It has basically different mechanisms, so it allows you to it utilizes basically SQLite, and it has the 4 CRUD functionalities to add item to a to-do list, update it, delete it, so on and so forth, and list all of the items. As well, it has JWT implementation where we can actually secure our endpoints. So that's a very nice project. And basically we can see here that this application is currently running on .NET 6. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be updating this application from .NET 6 to .NET 7 Preview 4 and actually implement filters on our post method. So we can add, when we're adding an item, in order for us to basically analyze the DTO which is coming from the client to the minimal API, and we can see different ways where we can implement them. So once you go to this repository, please clone it locally, so you can go to code and download it, or if you have already Git set up, you can just click here and you can actually clone it locally. So that's what we're going to be doing. So let's go back to our terminal, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go to desktop, and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it live demo. and let's go to that folder, and basically I'm just gonna clone this repo. Perfect. Now that I have it cloned, what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be utilizing Rider, which is the IDE, in order for me to actually build my application. So let's go to Rider. If you don't have Rider, you can use Visual Studio Code, you can utilize Visual Studio, you can use basically any IDE that you want. I'm just, in this phase, I'm trying to experiment with Rider, so I'm gonna see how it's gonna go, but so far so good. So let me open this. Okay, it's loading. Let's make the font a bit bigger. Let's go to editor, code editing, maybe font. Yep. And let's utilize size, I don't know, 40. Save, and let's try opening a file. Okay, perfect. Great. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to be doing is, before we do anything else, is we need to just build our application and make sure it's building successfully and it's running as it should. So that's going to be our first step right now. So again, I'm going to be utilizing this terminal because it's nice and big, and I'm going to navigate to my application, and I'm just going to type .NET build. Perfect, I can see my application has built successfully. I'm gonna run it, .NET run. Great, and I'm gonna be utilizing Insomnia in order for me to communicate with my API. Okay, that's Insomnia. I'm not sure if it's gonna be, see if I can make it a bit, how can I zoom in? Let's increase the font size, I don't know, to 30. Okay, and let's see if there is maybe anything else. I think that should be fine. Yeah, so here I have just several endpoints that I've already added, which basically, let's see this one, get all. So the first step is I need to basically log in, and basically this is an account that I have, and I think if you use the same, you'll be able to get the same JWT token. And all I need is to do is click on send. I need to type my password again, and once I do, I get back a JWT token, so I need to copy it. And then, for example, inside get all, inside under header, what I need to do is I need to add this header, which is basically going to be the authorization bearer, and then I need to paste here my JWT token. And once I do that, I'm basically able to, because this body does not have anything, what I'm basically going to be doing is I'm going to send this request. And if I click on send, I can see that there was work on my side, my API here, and I can see that I got the information back, which is going to be the ID2 and ID4, which is great. Let me see if I can make it this even better, a bit bigger even. Okay, interface, let's see this one, 24 as well. So that's why everything is 24. Yeah, I think that should be fine. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, that's better. So now we can see that we have my information coming back, and if I click send again, we can see it's getting it. And let's say if I want to add an item, so let me add an item with an ID, I don't know, 8, and I'm gonna say, for example, for example, post this .NET 7 preview video on YouTube. Okay. And now let me send. and we can see that this has been added successfully. And now if I go back to all, I click on send again, I can see that my item has been added. And again, inside my add item here, inside the headers, I have added also the authorization header with my bearer token. So again, as I said previously, you can just get it directly from here, and this is the JSON that you're going to be needing in order for you to actually directly get this. Again, there's a complete separate video on how we set it up. I'm going to be linking it here somewhere and in the description down below, so you're able to actually go through it and understand how this works. So once we have done that, now what we're going to be doing is we need to start upgrading our application from .NET 6 to .NET 7 Preview 4. So let's see how we can do that. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we need to go into our to do API CS project. So we'll go here and I'm gonna click on edit and edit my CS project file. And the first thing I need to do is I need to update my target framework and enable C#11. So in order for me to basically update to .NET 7, it's gonna be as simple as changing 6 to 7 here. And that's gonna be the first part. The second thing is underneath this, I'm gonna be utilizing the Lang version, and I'm gonna say it's gonna be preview, and this will basically enable for me C#11, and this is gonna be the first part that I need. So I'm gonna save this, and then the other part of which I'm gonna be needing is I need to update my packages so they are compatible with .NET 7. So this will work, do not get me wrong, but we need to, in order for us just to be on the safe side, let's just update everything to the preview of .NET 7. So first things first, I'm gonna take this package. So Rider has a built-in NuGet manager, but in case you are using Visual Studio Code, I'm gonna tell you how I do it in order for me to get the preview, the ID of the NuGet package. So I'm gonna say NuGet package. I'm gonna go to my NuGet packages. I'm gonna paste here. Let me zoom in. I'm gonna paste here my the package that I want. And if I go here, I can see the latest version is this one. So I can just copy it. And I'll update it here. So that's the first one, similar to the Microsoft Entity Framework core design. So let's copy this one, let's paste it here, let's go to here, and it's gonna be the same one as before, so let's just paste it. Oh no, it's gonna be different, this one, so let's copy this one. And let's deal with this one for the SQLite. Perfect, it's gonna be 22229. Yep, it's gonna be similar to the one before, so let's just paste this one. Wow, sorry, let's copy it again. And lastly, let's see this one here. So we'll copy this one, we'll paste it here, click on search, we should see it, and this is basically 6.3.1. I think we're close enough to it, so let's just update it. Okay. Once we have updated our NuGet package, so now our application, in essence, it's running on .NET 7. How easy was that? So let's go back to our terminal and let's stop our application. And what I'm going to be doing, I'm just going to do a quick build. So everything will restore and make sure that everything is running as it should be. So .NET build. Perfect. We got 5 warning. That should be fine. Let us not worry about this right now. And we can see that the build has completed. Build succeeded. Perfect. So now let's just run and let us run just a quick test on it. We'll get all of the information. Let's add the password and let's go back to Insomnia and let me just get all items and we should receive it all. So send, I need to add the password. So this is because I had to input the password, but now it should be faster, yes. So basically it's still working with .NET 7 as expected. Great, so let's stop this. So the next step is what we're gonna be doing is we need to actually add the new functionality, which is gonna be filters. And we're gonna be doing it in 2 ways. So first, the first method that we're gonna be implement is we're gonna be actually appending that filter into our post call here. So basically this is our program.cs where everything lives, And we can see here that we have our JWT setup information, we have our Swagger file, we have here, for example, the license for our Swagger file. And there's going to be another video, I think, coming within this week, which is going to be covering the more of the API documentation which .NET 7 provide for us, which is a new enhancement specifically for minimal APIs. And once we have, hopefully this week I'll be able to release it. But anyways, so here we can see we have all of our endpoints, we have the get, we have the post. And basically what we want to do is we're going to be adding inline filters for this post method, so we are actually able to authenticate, or not authenticate, sorry, to be validate the item to make sure if it's a valid item which is coming in or not. And in case if it's not a valid item, we're just going to be returning invalid parameters back to the user. And in case it is, we're going to process the request and be able actually to add it into the application. So that's going to be the goal, the first part of our video. The second part is we're going to actually see how we can do it properly, where we can actually create a new class specifically for the filters, and we can actually add it to there, and then we can see how we can attach it to our post method. So let's get started. So the first item that I need to do, or basically the first thing that we need to do here is actually we need to go to the end of the post, and I'm gonna click on the dot. And once I click on the dot, I'm gonna start typing add filter, and you can see here that directly that the add filter has showed up, and this is only available within .NET 7 Preview 4 for minimal APIs. So the first one is basically attaching it, which we're not gonna be, which basically gonna be of T filter type, which is not gonna be we're not gonna be doing in the first part. We're gonna be doing on the second part of this video. For the first part, we're gonna just add it here, attach it. So we're gonna put add filter, and basically we're gonna pass the context. So here we're gonna be basically utilizing normal filters within ASP.NET. So we have a context and we have next, and it basically is connecting to the middleware. And once we have done that, we're gonna put async, and then we're gonna pass the context. Then once we have done that, another lambda method. And basically here what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be actually checking our input that is gonna be coming in. So that's gonna be the first part for us. So basically what we're gonna be doing is I'm just gonna be returning next context. And that's going to be the normal behavior in case everything goes through. So what's happening here? So if you know, whenever the request comes in, it's going to go to the filter first, and once it goes to the actual, okay, let's try to map it out. So let's go back to our edge here, and let's open draw.io. And we're just going to call it, okay, minimal API requests. Just anything right now, it doesn't really matter. And we're just gonna save it on the desktop. Okay, so what we're gonna be doing, let's zoom in. So this is the request coming into my application. So that's the request, and this request is basically gonna come to my endpoint. So the expected behavior is as soon as this request is gonna come, it's gonna go directly to the endpoint and execute. But that's not the case. When we have filters, so this is the normal case without filter. Let's add it here. Request without a filter. So that's gonna be how it's gonna happen with a request with a request without a filter. So what happened when we have a filter? So in that case, what's gonna happen is this is gonna be moving to here, and that's gonna use a different shape for this. And let's say this is our filter. So basically the request first, it's gonna come to this filter. It's gonna do all of the necessary checking. And in case the checks pass within a filter, in case the checks pass to the filter, it's gonna go back, it's gonna continue to the endpoint. And we didn't add something here, and we can see here, like from the endpoint again, it's gonna go back to the user. So let's do this right here. We're gonna put this nice user. So it's gonna go back to the client. So once the request has been processed, it's going to go back to the client. And here, for example, if it passes again, if it passes the filter, it goes to the endpoint, and then once that is done, it's going to go to the client. But in case the filter has failed, or basically the verification process inside the filter has failed, it's going to go similar to this. It's going to skip the endpoint completely, and it's going to go directly to the client. So let's see how we can do this arrow here. Just copy this one. I'm sorry, I'm not Picasso, but I'm trying my best. So let's do this, something like this, something like this. And what I can do is I can attach it here and just make this go down like this. Okay. So that's what's gonna happen. So in case the filter has processed successfully, so this is a success, it's gonna go to the endpoint, execute, and then go to the client. If it's a failure, it's gonna basically skip the filter here. It's gonna go directly, it's gonna skip the endpoint from the filter. It's gonna go directly to the client with an error message, either bad request, bad parameters, whatever the message we wanna put there. So that's basically the request with a filter. Request with request with a filter. Okay, so that seems fairly simple. So why do we need here to have return next context? So in essence, the process here of moving from one aspect to another, so moving from a filter to the endpoint, we are basically relying on the middleware. And I have another video which explains middleware. I'll also link it here somewhere. But in essence, in order for us to move the process from the actual filter to the execution of that endpoint, we need to pass the request to the middleware, to the contacts, and that way it will reach the endpoint. So that's why here next under with a parentheses the contacts is basically we are passing the request to the middleware. So that's the expected behavior in case the request is actually passing through. So what we need to do here is we need to add some kind of functionality in order for us to verify the input from the item. It's going to be a very simple verification process. And once we have added those, we're going to actually add some certain condition. Either we reject the request or we continue to the middleware. So that's what we're going to be doing. I hope I explained this in a way where you can actually understand it. If not, please put the questions in the comments down below, and I'll try my best to explain it in a future video. So basically what we're going to be doing here is we need to add the filter functionality where we're going to be checking the incoming request, and if the checks is passed, we're going to go through we're going to pass it to the endpoint, and then the endpoint we're going to return the results to the user. If not, we're going to send a failure request and we're going to send it back directly to the user. So how can we do that? So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be creating a new function. So we're going to and this function is going to return a boolean if it has passed or not, as simple as that. So we're going to say boolean, and we're going to just say check incoming DTO, as simple as that. And the item that we're going to pass to this is we're going to be passing the context. And why do you think we're going to pass the context? Is because the context will contain the DTO or the parameters that the user is sending to our endpoint, and that's why we need to pass it. So, and the context here, if we hover on top of it, we can see it's type of route handler filter delegate, and that's the one we're going to be using. It's going to be route handler invocation context. So that's the one that we're going to be needing. So we're gonna put route handler invocation context, and we're gonna call it context. And once we have added that, now we have our method created. And what we're gonna be doing is first we need to check if there is a DTO. So basically we need to check if the user actually sent something. So, and the second step is we need to check if the DTO is of type. So here we can see for our post we're accepting an item, so we need to check if it's type item. And the third one is we need to validate the DTO. So that's going to be the checks that we're going to be doing. So first item, how do we do it? So again, we're going to be utilizing the context. So if context.parameters, and we can see here that for this action, for this endpoint, we have two parameters. We have the DB context, which is going to be injected automatically for us, and we have the item one. So these basically, they're going to be in an array. And this is here for, in our case, it's going to be an array of two items. So the first one is going to be the API DB context, and the second one is going to be the item itself. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be tapping into the parameters, and we're going to be choosing the second item, which is going to make it parameter 1. So, and we're going to say if parameter 1 equal null, we're just going to be returning false. So that's going to be the first check. If the item here is null, we're not receiving it, it means that we have not received it from the user, so it's going to be false. So the verification has failed. So the second check that we need to do is if context.parameters, again, because we already checked that it is there, we're going to say if is not item param, return false. So what does this mean? So the first thing we're doing here is we are actually accessing the second item, so which is going to be our item DTO, which is coming in, and we're saying if it's not of item type. So we're doing basically a type of our incoming, because basically inside the parameter right now, it's going to be, if you can see here from the definition, it's going to be a list of objects. And basically, because it's a list of objects, we don't really know what type of of object it's being sent to us. So in order for us to verify it's the valid type that we want to check, is we need to do this type of. And instead of doing it something similar to this, if context.parameters 1, it's going to be something like this, type of, and we'll take this, all of this, we'll take it, we'll put it inside this one here, we'll say equal item something similar to that. Instead of actually doing this manual of linking them both, we don't really want to do that. So this one makes it easier for us. So in essence, it basically allows us to check the type of this parameter. If it does not match to the item, it's going to return false. In case it actually match this type item, we're basically creating a new variable called param, and basically this param variable is what we're going to be using in order for us to validate the object. So I hope that has been cleared. So once we have done that, now what we need to do is we need to create a new function. So let's create this one, and we're going to call it bool is valid item, and we're going to expecting an item here. And basically the conditions that we're going to be doing here is going to be very simple and straight to the point. The first one is we're going to say if item.title length is longer than 2 characters. So if your title is less than 2 characters, it will not take it, and actually 1 character. And basically, the item.id has to be bigger than 0, for example. And in case these are valid, we're going to be returning true, else we're going to be returning false. As simple as this. You can use fluid validation here. I think Nick Chapas has a really good video about fluid validation, which is, I think you should watch it. But I think for now we're just going to be doing a very simple validation on the item which is incoming from the DTOs. So once we have added this, so all we need to do right now is we're just going to return the is valid item, and we're going to pass the param which we have gotten from the previous method. So this is gonna be basically the processes that we're gonna go into in order for us to check the incoming object or DTO. So first we're gonna check it if it's empty or not. We're gonna check if it's type item or not, and then we're gonna actually do the checks on the object. So how can we translate this here? Very simple. So first things first is what we need to do is we need to put here check incoming DTO, and then we're gonna pass, it's gonna require a contact, so that's what we're gonna pass. And basically, because this method returns true or false, so which is a boolean, what we can do is basically we can just implement the equal false, for example. So in case it's equal to false, what we're gonna be returning is we're gonna return results dot bad request, and we're gonna pass a message. We can say invalid requests. And in case it is successful, it's gonna continue and it's gonna pass it's gonna pass the request to the endpoint in order for it to process the request. So that's in the simplest way how we can actually attach filters to our minimal API endpoint. So let's save this. Let's go back to our terminal and let's do .NET build. Make sure that the application is building. Would not mess anything up. Perfect. Now let's do .NET run. Let's pass the password. Okay, great. Now we have the password, the application running. Let's go back to our Insomnia. And first things first is I'm just gonna get this to make sure that everything is still working. Okay, great. Let's get it again. Perfect. And now I'm gonna try to add an item. So I'm gonna put the ID here. Just wanna first put it as 0. And then I'm gonna put here testing endpoint. Because we have two conditions. The ID needs to be bigger than 0 and the title needs to be more than 1. So let's first put the title as T only. And right now, if I send this, I should receive invalid parameter. So let's see if this will work or not. So send invalid request. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So let me put here, for example, an ID 9, and I'm gonna keep the title as T. So I should also receive an invalid request. Perfect. I'm gonna add here testing endpoint. Put V1, for example. And let's put send. And we can see it has processed successfully. I got the result and I got the link to it. So now if I go here, get all, and I click on send, I can see that I have my item has been added successfully. So you might think to yourself, okay, great, but why do I need to do this? In order for you, let's go back to our web browser here. So in order for us to have a high performance web API, and we need to basically utilize or basically optimize every single resource on our machine, we can actually add the filtration inside our endpoint, but that's going to create an overhead to process this, because we don't really want that request to reach the endpoint for it to be checked. It's always better to check the incoming request, specifically the parameters, and do the filtration from there before we can actually send it to the endpoint. And that's going to be less resources on our machine or our application. So that's why it's always better to do the filtration before in order for us to optimize our API. So that's why we need to do it. So now that we have done this here, basically in the directly attaching it to our endpoint, the next step for us is we're going to be actually creating a filter class. And once we create that filter class, we're going to be basically utilizing the same thing here, but instead of having all of this logic attached here, we're just going to be basically moving into a different class. And once we move it, we can see how much more cleaner it can be by just adding the filter that we want to this endpoint. So let's do this right now. I just realized that my lights were not on, so apologies for that. I hope you would be able to see me before, but anyways. So inside the root directory of our application, I'm gonna create a new folder. So I'm gonna add directory, and this directory I'm gonna call it filters. And inside this filters directory, I'm gonna be add a new class, and this class we're gonna be call it validation filter. Great. Yes, add So now we have our validation filter there, we have our class study. So now let's start build our filters from here. So first things first is I'm gonna make this a generic one, because basically, although right now I only have one endpoint which I'm adding the filter to, if I have a full-fledged application, I don't want to add different classes for filtration depending on the object which is coming in. It's always better to make it as anonymous, or basically of type T. And then basically, once I have it of type T, it's much more easier for me to inject which type of filter do I want based on that. So that's why I'm adding the T variable here. And then I need to basically utilize the interface, I route handler filter where T of type class. So that's what I want. And you can see here it started complaining because we're not implementing. So let's implement. Let's put this here. Let's click here. We have implementing missing members. So that's the basically the member that we need to basically implement in order for us to be compliant with the IRoute handler filter. And basically we can see here that we have the route handler invocation context and the route handler filter delegate. So the delegate here is basically which allowing us to go from one item to the other inside our dependency injection or inside our middlewares. And basically the second one here is going to be basically the context which going to be utilizing in order for us to analyze our request. So again, I have a different video over this which is going to be linked here somewhere. You can check that out. So the first things first is we need to check the parameters that we are getting. So let's do this right now, because basically based on the parameters that we're getting, we're going to be able to actually check or implement the filtration, or the filtration that we want to do. So it's going to be var param equal context dot parameters dot first or default, and basically we're going to be doing, so in case x is not null, we're going to get type, and we're going to say equal type of T, and this is going to be it. So what are we doing here? So basically what we're doing is similar to what we have done before, is we're just actually getting the list of parameters, and because I want to make it as generic as possible, so I don't really know if it's going to be the first one, the second one, the third one in my list. So all I'm doing is I'm telling, okay, you have a list of parameters, and from this list of parameters, what you need to do is you need to check all of the types of the parameters that you have, and what you need to do is you need to get me an object which match the filtration type that I want to do. And in this case, the filtration type I'm going to be passing here through my validation filter, and we're going to see how we can pass that. But basically what I'm going to, in essence, this is doing is checking if the parameters contain a filter, or basically contain a DTO of type item. And basically we're utilizing here, so instead of having it, if you want to think about it, it's going to be something like type of item. That's going to be basically it. So T here is going to be dynamically injected with the item. So once we have done that, now we have our parameters. The first check that we need to do is check if the param is null or not. So it's very easy. So we're going to say if param is null, we're going to be basically returning result dot bad request. I'm going to say invalid param or parameters. Just saying as simple as that. Or let's tell you what, yeah, or let's just keep it as a bad request for now. Okay, let's make it as a bad request. Let's keep it as this. Okay, let's keep it as this. So once I have verified that the param is not null, the next step is what I need to do is if param is item. Because why I'm doing this? Because as I got here, I made sure that the object which is coming in is gonna be of why is this still giving me an error? Let's see. public static. Okay, let's organize it better. Results. Okay, needed to be an async. Okay, that should be fine. So basically here we're returning the bad request. The second item here is basically I need to check that the object that we got is of type item so I can actually implement the validation on it. So basically here we're doing is type of item. That's basically exactly what we're doing, checking if it is type of item. Okay, so in case it is of type of item, we are basically able to do the validation. If not, what we're doing is we're just gonna be returning the await next context, which means that we are actually passing back the request to the middleware, so it will continue the processing, because basically there's nothing for us to check because this is not what we need to check. But in case it is of param item, we need to actually do the validation. And basically, first things first is we need to just copy paste the same validation process that we did here. So let's copy this method, so I don't have to retype it again. And we're gonna paste it here. And basically, we're gonna say var validation result equal is valid item, and we're gonna pass param to it. Param, okay. And then we're gonna be doing a check. Why it's not happy with param? Let's see. Is not accessible. Oh, excuse me. I need to cast it as item. Okay, so once I have done that, now we need to check the result. So if it's not a valid validated result, what I need to do is I need to basically return results dot bad request. I'm gonna say invalid parameters. Parameters, okay. And in case it is a valid result, it's gonna continue next. So I hope this makes sense. So let's do like a quick recap of what we have done here. So basically we did the invocation, we created firstly our class. We have utilized this interface, our iRoute handler filter. We implemented the method that we need to implement. Then we are tapping into the parameters of the context. We're getting the object based on the type of the item we're passing. We're checking if it's null or not. Let's move these. And then based on after that, what we're doing is we're checking if it's type item. If it is of type item, we're just passing it to the validation and we're casting the param as item. And then based on the result of this method here, we're actually, if it is null, we're returning bad request, else we're continuing to the middleware and it's gonna be passing through. So great, let's see what's going on here. So let's save this. And now what we need to do is I'm just gonna comment out this code because I'm gonna be posting this to GitHub so you can have access to it. So I'm just gonna put this on a new line and I'm gonna comment this out. And here what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna put dot add filter. And basically the filter that I wanna add is the validation filter that I have just created. Validation filter, and I'm gonna pass inside of it what is the item that what is the object that I'm trying to validate. So we can see here, because I'm expecting an item, so this is the item that I'm expecting to validate. I'm calling here the validation filter that I have, and basically I'm doing and adding a filter. So let's go back to my terminal I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna be doing a .NET build. Now I'm gonna do .NET run. Perfect. I'm gonna go back to Insomnia. Let us just get this. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, great. We have got the information. Perfect. So now let me try to add an item and see if it's gonna happen or not. So I'm gonna remove all of this basically, and I'm gonna put this as 0. So now I should get bad parameters or invalid parameters. Invalid parameters, exactly. Now the second one is I'm gonna make this a stun with a title, empty title, invalid parameters. I'm gonna put the letter here, send it, invalid parameters. I'm gonna paste the exact message. I'm gonna put here too, send. We can see it has processed successfully, and if I click on get all and send, we can see the item is being added here and I can get it. Perfect. So this is exactly the implementation that I want, and basically here we can see how filters has basically made our life way more easier by adding the validation that we want on the item, and basically we removed an extra layer of validation that we would have needed to add prior to .NET 7 Preview 4 inside our action here. So that's why it's really important. It's a really amazing feature that has been added to .NET 7, which is specifically for minimal API, which is basically the filtration for minimal API. I hope this video helped. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments down below, and I'll try my best to answer them. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. It will really help the channel. Have a good day.